Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder, it is time to talk about what looks like an upcoming tank to War Thunder. Whether it comes out this year, next year, or the year after, it seems like this vehicle is at least in the early stages of it being ready to go. This is the M60A3 SLEP. Now in this video, we're going to go through where this image came from. We're also going to go through who created it, and also the implications that it may have on the game itself, my general opinions of it, and also what is this machine. So the first thing is this image yesterday was pretty much posted everywhere. It's now on the War Thunder Reddit. It also is posted on a 4chan board which talks about video games, which you can see right here. On top of this as well, if you do a reverse image search of this image, what you will find is it was also on Artstation by Alex Protskyi, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong. It was on his personal Artstation and also the Artstation of All on 3D. Now, why is it interesting? Well, first of all, his Artstation, Alex Protskyi, kind of tells us about him. He's a 3D artist, and he also works for Orion 3D. Now, if you have a look into Alex, you actually find out he's the head of Orion 3D, which is a design studio which focuses mainly in the ideas of graphic design that you can see right here. He may be, well, I'm sure he's not the only person that works there, but he seems to at least be the head dude. And if you have a look at his Facebook, well, he looks like a wonderful person, and he's also based in Ukraine. He also is sporting some wonderful socks and sandals, which to me is just a wonderful combo, especially while holding some guns. So the main thing to understand is this is a 3D modeler who at some point had these two images sat on his Artstation, very similar to the leaks that we had a few weeks ago, and now they've mysteriously gone. If you actually click these links right here, which you can see the image is on, they don't exist anymore. As you can see, 404 page not found, so incredibly similar to what we saw, with the other leaks. Now, the major thing is that I will point out, if you see these links, like on an Artstation or something like that, the first thing to do is to put them into archive.is so they actually save, and also stick them in the Wayback Machine if you're able to. The reason to do this is even if that page is deleted, you can still get access to it later on, so therefore you have solid evidence of it coming from a page like this, instead of very much circumstantial, which is what we are dealing with right now. These images are not circumstantial, they definitely exist, and they definitely existed on this Artstation. The issue is proving fully to a person who is skeptical where they came from. Now, let's talk about some credentials for Alex here. So, he's worked on Metro Exodus, he's also worked what seems on a lot of social games, mobile games, he's also worked on a lot of exteriors and interiors, whether it comes to architecture or whether it comes to internal designs that you can see here, and also he's worked on naval, and it seems like he may have created some stuff for War Thunder ships. There are some ships here that look very similar to the American ones that we have in game that you can see, the PT boats. So for me, I would definitely say that there has been some cooperation with Gaijin in the past, because these don't look like models out of any other ship game that I can think of. On top of this, there is an AH-1Z in his portfolio, which is incredibly well modeled and has pretty much everything that you would require from a HD model of an AH-1Z. The only thing I'm wondering about with this model is it an actual model, is it a 3D model of a model, or is it a 3D model for a game, if that makes sense. So yeah, now that is just something to think about. So we can see that he has previous working in the naval and also the helicopter component, which is public information on this Artstation. Plus, he's obviously done a ton of work for other countries in the past. He looks like your standard contractor that you would contract out for models of this, because as we know, I believe Gaijin outsources the majority of the 3D models that they do to other companies, such as Orion, which Alex Protskyi seems to be the head of. So it would, you can make the links here. it all makes sense. So let's talk about, and also he's from Ukraine, very close to Russia, which of course is where Gagin is based, in Moscow. So let's talk about the M60A3 SLEP itself. The M60A3 SLEP, or if you want to call it, the Service Life Extension Program, which is a program that the Challenger 2 is also being looked into for, is a way to extend the life of a pre-existing vehicle by adding stuff to it, whether it be upgrading the gun, whether it be upgrading the engine, whether it be upgrading any other parts of it. Basically taking an old model and trying rejuvenate it into new things. We see this with the Chaffee, which some of the South Americans are still using with the 60mm. We also see it with other programs. Even the M60A3 in a way was that, and also the M1A1, with the SEP upgrade and all of this. All of these are technically extension programs so you don't have to build a new fully fledged billion-dollar vehicle. Instead, we try and extend what we already have to deal with the combat that we have today. Now, this, in all intents and purposes, this is built by Radeon. And they actually have a really cool video on it, which we're going to go through a little bit of. But the main thing to understand is that this is designed for export. This is designed not for US military use. It is designed to be exported to other countries. So it may be built by America, but it is not for America. Remember, there are a lot of vehicles out there which are designed by a specific country specifically for export. Think about the Vickers tanks for Britain. That's probably the best example that, obviously I can put out right now. So basically, the SLEP, if you want to have a general overview of what it has on offer, the first thing is that it's upgrading its engine. So the engine is going from a 750 to a 950 engine. It is also getting what is known as basically a 0-hour condition. And what this means is it's clean and it's ready to go from the start. Then it's getting an upgraded electrical system. You've got to remember that the horizontal and vertical cannon drive on the M60A3 is all hydraulic. Instead, they're adding in a new electrical drive, so therefore it should be faster and also more efficient to the vehicle. Remember that this was all discussed, at least in this video, in 2016. Videos of this vehicle were at least found in around 2012, showing that they were testing it even, back then. So, as we said, electric drives. Then, of course, there is a new fire control system. Basically, some nice LED screens. There is also some other systems which were involved with it as well, such as the digital fire control unit, which has a day sight, a thermal sight, and the commander's display. So once again, taking old tech in the form of an M60A3 and improving it to modern day standards that we see on stuff like the Abrams. Then we have the stabilized mirror, so you can see stuff, and the big kahuna, which a lot of people will be more interested in, the 120mm cannon. So this is the M256, this is the one which is on the M1A1 right now, so the one that we have in game, and you basically just plonk it on top of an M60. So they upgrade the 105 from the 105 to the 120 to bring it up to modern day standards of munitions. So very similar to the L44 as well, that you see from the Germans, of course, and this will be the big thing that makes a lot of difference to people when it comes to the game. Also increased lethality range because of the gun, and then they have some testing at the proving grounds, or the Aberdeen proving grounds in America. So those are the overall things that Radeon talk about, but obviously they're not the only upgrades, especially when you look at a model like this. And remember, this is a 2010 to 2019 vehicle. The estimates for this vehicle are around about 2016 when it started appearing, but if you look for when pictures of it started appearing, it was at least being tested in 2012 and maybe even earlier than that. But we're still talking about like a 2010 and forward vehicle, very similar to the tank destroyer we just got for the Japanese, the Type 16. So it looks like we're really going into the modern day today, but at least we're going in a more fragile state. Like the Type 16 is it's not a 2019 MBT, it's a 2019 very light tank destroyer. The M60A3, even though it's a 2010 and beyond vehicle, it is still an M60A3 which has been upgraded. This is not an Armata. This is not, the fully fledged out, Leopard 2A7 or anything crazy like that. So for me, it's nice to, it's nice to see it when it comes to the game, but this is not going to be like a 10.0 vehicle when I look at it. But anyway, as we talked about, so 950 horsepower engine. It's also got the 120mm gun, and obviously the improved fire control systems, which won't really matter too much when it comes to War Thunder. The only thing, at least for now, the fact that it has a thermal sight, maybe that will be like a big reveal we see over the next year and therefore make a difference, but right now it doesn't matter because it's not implemented in the game. So the two big things, it's faster, it's got a little bit more armor, well, faster, maybe not because of the increased weight, but it's got a more beefy engine, and it's got a bigger gun. So two things which are incredibly important when it comes to War Thunder. But it does have access, as you can see, to smoke grenades and also some other additional armor that we'll talk about as well. So this is a picture of it in actual life, I think is the way to put it. You can see that it has extra armor on the sides and also on the turret, and this is probably a better picture just to show you. So it has the additional slat armor that you can see here. It doesn't seem to be composite, it just seems to be blocks of slat. And then also it has, the slat armor is here. It's designed, I believe, to stop stuff like RPGs, to try and set them off before it hits the central turret itself. And then it has some passive armor on the hull itself. So what I said before, just disregard. So yeah, slat armor here on the sides of the turret, and then a very thin passive armor on the sides of the M60 of the hull. There also seems to be some very thin passive armor on the front here as well, on the lower glacis, and also an APU and an air conditioning system which has been fitted in a large sponson box at the rear of the vehicle, which you can't really see in this apart from this big block that you see here. Those are the other improvements that we see which aren't shown in the video. So the video focuses mainly on the gun and the engine, whereas this focuses much more on the armor. And also look at that gun on the top and the belts. Doesn't that look absolutely beautiful? Unfortunately, this design doesn't have that. There doesn't seem to be a top mount gun, but maybe in the future there will be. What is interesting about this though is everything that I've read about it, since it is quite a recent development, over the last 10 years, a lot of the opinions that I've been reading about in specific articles and stuff like that are very down on it. They see it as an upgrade which isn't as good as some of the other upgrades that are around the place, because you've got to remember, the M60 is a vehicle that's used by a ton of countries even today. It is one of the first, if not one of the main battle tanks that we've had of the at least 21st century, and 21st century, yes, I'm right, and also, the 20th century. It is used by many different countries in an export form, and that means that many different countries have been able to already improve theirs. Like this is the Turkish M60T, and you can see they've already upgraded the gun, and they've already added a bunch of armor by themselves. So another export version coming out of Radeon doesn't make too much sense, unless there is an absolutely crazy amount of M60s that are still being tried to be sold to people, which I'm sure there are, if this is the case. So even though this has, the additional armor on it, it's got the improved engine, it's got the improved gun, it isn't, at least seen from what I've been reading, as that much of a crazy upgrade for today's standards. When you look at stuff like the Armata, you look at the Abrams of today, the Leopard of today, even the Challenger 2, this is still, in regards to an M60, it's still old tech, even though you've given it a new brush with a 120 on it. So, in-game, in terms of War Thunder, you can see the aircon stuff here. In terms of War Thunder, when we think about it. So War Thunder is a game which has definitely over the last few years thrown the history idea out of the window when it comes to, you know, the matchmaking and stuff, which I think is obviously a great move. You know, you can't have historical matchmaking. It makes absolutely no sense. So even though this is a very much a modern day vehicle, I can definitely see that this won't be a 10.0 or even higher vehicle. What I see from this is this looks to me like prime 8.7 premium bait. And I know a lot of people are not going to be happy about that, but think about it. Every other nation right now has an 8.7 premium. The two nations that don't are the Americans, because they have the XM1 instead at 9.0, and the British, which have the Shock Cal Delay at 8.3. So for me, this looks like prime 8.7 premium base for the Americans, because it has all of the nice upgrades that the M60 has. You could compare it to the Rise, saying that the Rise has some stuff going for it, and then the M60A3 has some stuff going for it. See it in the, you know, the AMX30, the Super they just added, and also the Brennus, where you have the Brennus at 8.7, and then you've got the Super at 8.7, where the Brennus has the ERA on it, and it's got slight differences, and then the Super has the stabilizer. So you can see that at least in my opinion, if we look at how they've handled the AMX30 Super, and its premium status at 8.7, I can easily see this slotting into an American 8.7 premium line, alongside the M60 Rise. And a lot of people will probably not be happy with that, because of the fact that, once again, we're getting another 8.7 premium that is not just, it's not top tier, but it's close to it, and also it means that people can buy straight into the game and get this vehicle. But, you know, I've been saying this for at least a year now. When the XM1 came out, you know, the floodgates opened, and then we had the A1A1 L44, the T55AM, the OF40 MTCS, or whatever it is, the Shock Cal Delay, the Super, you know, all of these machines, the Type 74G. So since every other nation has an 8.7 premium, I mean, America is going to get theirs too. Even though they already have the XM1, I'm sure they will get an 8.7 as well. And obviously with a stabilized 120, it'll be a lol pen machine, just like the A1A1L44 is, just like the Type 74G is, and hopefully the engine will be able to deal with the added weight. That is the only real downside I see with this machine right now, because of the fact that it is quite chunky, being an M60 already. The additional weight may push it to the point of just being, you know, kind of lumpy. Also, the cupola. This wonderful M60 cupola has got me killed so many times from either HE or APHE or HESH, where you hit the cupola, this thing here, and there is a machine gun in the front of it here, but basically in War Thunder, you hit this cupola, it bounces down, and it destroys everything. This is something that you even see with the Italian M60 Premium as well. And it also means that you know it's coming. You know, you can see it coming over a hill first before everything else. So even though my guess is this will be the 8.7 Premium, I don't think it will be the best 8.7 Premium, but it does have all of the aspects to make it competitive, and therefore I'm sure it will come into the game in that capacity. If you want to see any of the pictures and stuff, I'll leave them in the description for you, and I'll also leave this one here, the Radeon video, just so you can check it out yourself. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Reinman, Leonard Rudnick, Martinez, Matati, Moxie, Nick Graham, Alobralo, Super Cacti, Elove Goats, and Seductive Trashcan for supporting the channel.